Jack Mercer is a man of contradictions, a surgeon's hands with a brawler's knuckles. He'd left the priesthood the same week he joined the army. He speaks 5 languages and has lived on 3 continents, but none of that matters to him. Not after that one unforgivable night in Tangier. And at his side through all of it, Veronica, a beautiful woman with luscious long hair. She's always there when Jack comes home, ready to tell him that he's more than the sum of his mistakes. Jack grunts.
What do you want to do tonight, baby? I don't mind, Veronica coos. Whatever you want is my favorite thing to do. And they say I don't know how to write women. Hi, I'm Martin from Reedsy, and today I want to talk about a character type that appears in next to any type of book in almost every genre. The love interest. In particular, I want to dive into why they are so common, what role they actually play in a story, and why they're often the least developed character on the page, and how that can actually sabotage the very reason they exist in the first place. And at the end, I'm going to show you what goes into creating a love interest with an actual pulse. Let's start with an odd observation. Love interests turn up in stories that, on paper, actually have no need for them whatsoever. If you think about stories where the mission is to defuse a bomb, or to survive a deserted island, or to win a case, and yet in there, reliably, dependably, someone catches someone else's eye across a crowded Act 2. In a war film, the hero has a girl back home. That heist has a romantic spark between a crook and a cop. Even that survival story about the man on the deserted island ends up having 2 love interests. But why is this? Why do so many stories feel this need to have a romantic subplot somewhere in there? Some might say that it's simply writers being lazy. However, I take the more generous interpretation that it's something that we're conditioned to want and need. After a few thousand years of stories, we as readers have come to expect that romantic thread. And we've come to see full-length narratives as something that needs a romance. We notice when it's not there, and we feel its absence as a strange coldness in the book, even when we can't name what's missing. So writers include it and readers expect it, and the next generation of writers learn this, and round and round and round we go in the circle game. But let's take a step back from that. Why is it that we have been conditioned to expect these romance subplots? What is the love interest doing in all these stories? I'm going to posit 3 things. First, a love interest is where a big story becomes a personal one. Plots can be these vast abstract machines about wars and conspiracies and dragons and intergalactic conflicts. But this vastness can often lessen the stakes of the drama by virtue of being unrelatable. Not every reader has flown a starfighter, but every reader without exception has wanted to be truly known by another human being. And the love interest in a story is usually the point when epic can touch something that the reader has actually lived for themselves. Second, the acceptance of a love interest is fiction's most legible proof of personal growth. When a closed-off character finally lets someone in, when a cynic risks sincerity, when that loner accepts a helping hand, we understand this instantly, wordlessly, that something in them has changed. This capacity to love and be loved is how we certify transformation without the hero having this closing dialogue saying how the real Shawshank Redemption was the friends we made along the way. And my third idea for why love interests are so common is maybe a bit more of an edge case, but in many stories I find the love interest to be a sort of narrative pressure valve. It's a victory that creates a plausible natural high, where a realistic ending to your actual plot may not provide one. Your character may emerge from the war having lost so much, but they win the girl or the guy. Romance can let a story in a dark genre end in light without cheating its stakes. The town burned and the cost was terrible, but at least at the end 2 people walk out of the wreckage together, and somehow that's enough. And underneath all 3, I think there is the slightly embarrassing honest truth. We want the romance to be there. All of us. Even the hardened thriller reader, the military sci-fi devotee, the person who claims to have no patience for romance subplots. Hand them a story where this emotional connection is done well, and you'll see them racing through the pages to see what comes next. Love stories aren't just guilty add-ons to serious fiction. They're one of the load-bearing reasons why people come to stories at all. To watch someone be seen, to be chosen, and believe that for 300 pages that this might be possible for us too. The love interest does so much to make a story work, which makes it genuinely curious that it's often handed to the flattest character in a book. So let's see why that often happens. Have you ever written a character who's mainly there to admire your protagonist? Don't worry, I'm not trying to judge you here, we've all done it. Instead, I'm here to tell you that it is a bit of a default setting. For over a century, across pulp stories and paperbacks and films, the standard issue love story was a woman whose function was merely there to be part of the man's narrative. His reward, his motivation, his mirror, his reason for coming home. Generations of writers have absorbed this template the same way we absorb any convention, by reading and watching. You didn't invent this trope, you merely inherited it. And that's why its defaults really need to be scrutinized. We're talking about characters here who are trophies, a prize to be handed to our protagonist for completing the plot. We're talking about motivation, a love interest who's killed or harmed purely to fuel our hero's rage. Comic writer Gail Simone famously named this trope as women in refrigerators, after a Green Lantern issue where our hero returns home to find his girlfriend killed and stuffed in a refrigerator. You'll hear the term fridging these days to describe the act of killing off a love interest, usually a woman, in order to put gas in the narrative tank. Then you have the Manic Pixie dream girl, the quirky free spirit who just exists to teach a brooding man how to embrace life. The AV Club critic Nathan Rabin coined that term, and he later regretted it once it calcified from a diagnosis into a lazy insult that armchair critics would lob at any female character, which is in itself a little lesson on how these labels behave. Then you have your worried wife on the phone, who's constantly telling our hero to be careful, scene after scene, from the kitchen, usually on a cordless handset. Then we have the purest incarnation of woman as the admirer in the form of the Bond girl. Attracted to the hero because they're the hero, present because the story requires them to be present, and generally gone before the next film because the producers wanted someone fresher or because the girl had been fridged in the last movie.
5 minutes later.
This is no time to be rescued.
Historically, these characters have been women in a man's world, but just remember, this affliction can go in all directions. The cardboard boyfriend, handsome, supportive, dimensionless, is alive and well through domestic thrillers and YA novels. We are now living in a slightly more egalitarian world where female authors are also capable of writing flat love interests, so congrats, I guess? In a 2012 interview, a comic book writer named Kelly Sue DeConnick coined the sexy lamp test, which is a bit of an allusion to the Bechdel test, saying that if you can replace your female character with a sexy lamp and the story still basically works, maybe you need another draft.
I love lamp.
For example, you could probably do a functional season of 24 where instead of rescuing his wife, Jack Bauer goes on a murder spree to recover a stolen lamp. A lamp that means a lot to him personally.
You really love the lamp, or are you just saying it because you saw it? I love lamp.
I don't think DeConnick is saying that these stories don't work. It's just that they're not living up to the potential of being more impactful or more interesting. If you want to add a personal dimension to an epic story, this could be lessened if one half of this coupling isn't a real person. If you want to signal that your hero is growing, you don't want them to be loved by someone who's incapable of not loving them. That signifies nothing. In other words, every reason you could have for wanting a love interest in your story requires them to be a full person. So let's talk about how we set that up. Give them a view of the protagonist that no one else has. As we've alluded to already, a love interest's deepest function, the reason why they can certify your protagonist's personal growth, is the fact that they see your protagonist for who they really are, in a way that their sidekick or their mentor can't. A great version of this is right at the heart of Jane Austen's Emma. Look at how Austen builds the world around her heroine. Everyone in Highbury flatters Emma Woodhouse. Her father dotes on her, her old governess indulges her, poor Harriet Smith practically worships her. Emma lives inside a hall of admiring mirrors, which is precisely her problem, because a person who's only ever agreed with can never find out that they're wrong. There's a moment though, when on a picnic, Emma humiliates Miss Bates, a well-meaning though gormless spinster whose family has lost their fortune.
I shall be sure to say 3 dull things as soon as I open my mouth.
Ah, Mum, but there is the difficulty. When have you ever stopped at 3?
At this moment, everyone else lets this insult quietly, awkwardly pass by, but not the love interest, Mr. Knightley. Mr. Knightley, a character who has known Emma for a very long time, is the one character in the novel who really sees her for what she is. He knows how clever and generous she is, but he can also see how dangerous her boredom is, and how cruel her meddling has the potential to be. He's also the only one who will tell it to her face.
And were she a woman of fortune, I would not quarrel with you for any liberties of manner, but she is poor. She has sunk from the comfort she was born to, and if she lived to an old age, she'll probably sink more. She has seen you grow up from when her notice of you was an honour, to have you now in thoughtless spirits and the pride of the moment laugh at her, and humble her, and before her niece, and before others, many of whom are entirely guided by your treatment of her. It was badly done indeed.
This is the moment when Emma finally sees herself, and everything that makes her worthy of a happy ending flows from that, and her marriage to Knightley at the end puts a fine point on this. So, the practical question for your manuscript: what does your love interest know about your protagonist that nobody else in the book does? If the answer is nothing, then could they be replaced by a lamp?
I love lamp.
Make the attraction specific. Here's a distinction that will improve every romance you ever write. Far too often, two characters love each other simply because they're standing near each other and they're both impossibly gorgeous. The Bond girl falls for Bond because that is her job. The attraction requires nothing more than presence, and for all of them to have perfect cheekbones, which is precisely why this romance can easily evaporate between movies. If you want to build specific attraction, you need to drill down deeper and give us the evidence showing us why your characters are attracted to one another beyond hotness and proximity. I think the one movie I have seen more than any other in my life is When Harry Met Sally. And maybe the single greatest demonstration of a specific attraction comes right at the end of the movie, when Harry runs to find Sally before the stroke of midnight at New Year's Eve.
I love that you get cold when it's 71 degrees out. I love that it takes you an hour and a half to order a sandwich. I love that you get a little crinkle above your nose when you're looking at me like I'm nuts. I love that after I spend a day with you, I can still smell your perfume on my clothes. And I love that you are the last person I want to talk to before I go to sleep at night. And it's not because I'm lonely, and it's not because it's New Year's Eve. I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible.
These details are so specific, at times unflattering, and all things that we, the audience, have observed at various points throughout the film. This is unmistakably Sally that he's talking about, and not details that can be transferred to just about any other love interest in any other movie. The exercise for you in your book, and I mean this literally: write that speech. What would your protagonist say about their love interest? Once you've done that, cross out anything that could be said about someone else. Beautiful, kind, always there for me. Cross all that out. What survives those dirty details? That's the actual romance. If nothing survives, then drill deeper. Give your love interest more specificity. Quick pause: if you're finding this useful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. We make videos about writing and publishing every single week, and your support means a lot to us. Okay, make the love cost something. Nothing good ever comes for free, they say, and I think that applies to fictional romance as well. If choosing each other costs our characters nothing, no risk, no conflict, no competing loyalties, then the romance is a scenic rest stop on the highway of your narrative, somewhere nice to pull in for a few minutes before you resume your actual journey. If your love is expensive, however, if it has a potential cost, then it becomes a crucial part of that journey. In The Hunger Games, our heroine Katniss Everdeen is taking part in a televised battle royale where there can only be one winner. Katniss has one goal at the start of the games: to survive so she can return to her family. She is joined in this game by Peter, a boy from her district with whom she starts a tentative romance. This romance, however, jeopardizes Katniss's survival goals in two ways. One, the games only allow one winner. Two of them cannot survive, which means that every step she takes towards Peter is a step towards a future where, for him to live, she has to die. Secondly, Peter has a moral code. He'd rather die as himself than let the capital turn him into a monster.
I just don't want them to change me.
Katniss's code, however, is to do whatever it takes to survive. As a result, the price of this romance with Peter is that Katniss has to risk her own goals and alter her own moral code. So, two questions for your manuscript. What does choosing this person cost your protagonist? What else do they want that this love might endanger? And what else does your love interest believe that your protagonist wishes they didn't? Give them a life that continues off-screen. This is my last one here. It's the fastest of the four, but I think it's probably the most important one and the most obvious piece of advice. Ask yourself, does your love interest visibly exist when your protagonist isn't in the room? Watch how Raiders of the Lost Ark introduces Marion Ravenwood. We meet her in Nepal, not waiting for Indiana Jones, not aware that Indy is coming, but mid-drinking contests in a bar that she owns, beating a man twice her size at drinking shots and sweeping the takings off the table. Her life has demonstrably gone on without the hero, and gone on in exciting, interesting ways. She has her own stake in the plot. The medallion that guides the way to the Ark of the Covenant is hers. She also has her own history and her own unresolved grudge. She greets the hero of our film, our beloved protagonist, with a right hook to the jaw.
I learned to hate you in the last 10 years.
In about 90 seconds of screen time, we learn so much about this woman, and what we don't know, we can infer the hell out of. This scene shows us that we don't need to know a love interest's full biography. Instead, you need what this scene has, proof of independent existence. So ask yourself, what does your love interest want that has nothing to do with the protagonist? What were they doing the day before page 1 of your story? Alright, so let's put the whole argument in one place. Love interests are everywhere in fiction, even when the plot doesn't strictly call for one, because they can do 3 jobs that almost nothing else can. They make vast stories personal, they prove that people can change, and they let darker stories end in light. But every one of those jobs requires that love interest to be a person. Someone with their own viewpoints and their own way of life and their own price for falling in love. Because here's the thing, if we want that love interest to pay off, there has to be one condition. They could have said no. The hero who loses the war but wins the girl wins absolutely nothing unless the girl was free to leave but chose to stay. If you're working on a novel and you suspect that your love interest is little more than furniture, Reedsy's marketplace is home to over 1,200 fantastic editors, including developmental editors who diagnose this sort of thing every single day. Sign up for free, the link's in the description. Remember to like this video and smash that subscribe button. I've been Martin from Reedsy, and I'll see you on the shelves.